Anybody who had any connection with Escobar was either killed, arrested, or running for their lives.
Personally, I thought he was going to taste of his own medicine. Let's just call another flank he had to worry about.
The police, never did stuff like this. I mean, he was always worried about the police, but now you have Los Pepes playing outside the rules. They started to play dirty just like Escobar.
They were killing as many as 5 and 6 people a day. They would assassinate these people and leave signs hanging around the neck of the body, signed Los Pepes.
While Los Pepes is exterminating Escobar's support structure, the search block takes down some of Pablo's top lieutenants, such as Tyson Munoz.
The search block raided the apartment, cornered Tyson, and killed him in the proverbial gun battle with the Colombian police.
The confrontation was pretty much inevitable because these people were not going to be taken alive. In my opinion, the police did not want to take him alive either because the wheels of justice don't work in Colombia the way they do in the United States.
Despite an official prohibition, many of the American forces are rumored to be participating in the search block raids.
Delta Force operators and the DEA agents very frequently went along on these raids and often led them.
We couldn't stand back and feed them this information about a potential Escobar hideout and expect them to go out and participate in all the dangerous activities while we sat in the rear, and drank our coffee and waited for them to come back and report to us. So Javier and I decided ourselves that we would be involved in these operations. Right there on the front lines with the guys, running in, kicking the doors, going in, participating right alongside the Colombian National Police.
With Americans funding, training, and possibly even participating in search block raids, concern grows over a possible connection between the search block and the death squad, Los Pepes.
There were allegations on the part of Pablo that Los Pepes and Martinez were one and the same. I was very much afraid of somehow DEA being contaminated by what was going on out there.
There's been accusations that members of the Bloque de Busqueda provided information to Los Pepes. Did I ever see that? No. Did I ever see any indication that that happened? No. Could it happen? Sure, it could happen. There's 600 guys in that operation.
It's still something of a mystery who Los Pepes were, and that's obvious because the Los Pepes were basically murdering people.
One of the few to admit to participating in the killings is Escobar's former ally, Carlos Castaño.
Los Pepes is an organization
that arose supported by the auto defenses. Yes, particularly by my brother Fidel Castaño, but it was bigger.
Carlos Castaño and his brother Fidel were some of the original paramilitary units created to fight against the guerrillas.
When Escobar began executing members of his own organization inside his private prison, La Catedral, the survivors began to secretly ally themselves with Pablo's paramilitaries against the drug lord.
Pablo Escobar killed most of his friends and allies and his pals. But there were relatives that survived that lunatic and they joined us.
The drug trafficker said, "We're sick and tired of this guy, we're going after him." And they created the Pepes, and they attacked him exactly the way he used to work against society and against them.
We realized that he was a monster that we had to fight against no matter what.
So when they turned against him, they knew the inner workings of his organization. They knew who the people were, where the money was.
Los Pepes reportedly received support from Pablo's chief business rival, the Cali cartel.
The Cali cartel was more than happy to help Los Pepes or the search block or the Colombian government go after Escobar because he was their primary rival. And by eliminating the Medellin cartel, it just made for a more lucrative business for them.
Colonel Martinez and the U.S.-backed search block are rumored to be cooperating with Los Pepes.
Colonel Martinez was at this point, even though he denies it, I think, was willing to work with these elements from the underworld because for him, the battle with Escobar had become very personal.
You could say that Escobar affected all of us who were Los Pepes members.
When things started to get really ugly, when Los Pepes began killing people wholesale, it was clear to the Americans working in Bogota that this was out of bounds. And if word got back to Washington that the United States effort was connected in any way to these death squads, then Washington would basically pull the plug on American involvement.
This threw something into the game which really could have brought everything to a grinding halt.
Mark Bowden's Killing Pablo cites classified cables outlining the American concerns about Los Pepes.
While the United States Embassy in Bogota maintained the pretense that there was no connection whatsoever between Colonel Martinez's search block and Los Pepes, I came across the DEA's cable traffic back and forth from Bogota to Washington, which documents the knowledge of DEA agents that Los Pepes were intimately involved with the search block. Ambassador Busby himself wrote a rather lengthy cable to Washington where he details the fact that their own intelligence showed that there was a connection between Los Pepes and the search block. In fact, Ambassador Busby had gone to President Gaviria to complain about this and to demand that this connection cease and desist.
I had several meetings, and one of them, I want you to say, every member of the police, that this is not an instruction, that this is not the policy, that we shouldn't be involved in that.
Days after Gaviria's orders to the police, Los Pepes issue a press communique announcing they are officially disbanding.
And in effect, for a period of time, Los Pepes did cease and desist. So it was obvious that they understood that there was a connection between the police and Los Pepes.
Though officials moved to distance themselves from the vigilante group, Los Pepes continued their bloody campaign.
Los Pepes were the first tactic employed against Escobar that was immediately effective. In short order, everybody associated with Escobar, his family members, his lawyers, his bankers, his accountants, were either running for their lives or dead or under arrest. And very quickly, Pablo began to find that his protective shell was disintegrating.
We confronted Escobar's terrorists. There were a lot of killings during this confrontation.
We could see that the impact that they were having was incredible because they were playing without any rules.
Officially, the United States was not involved in the efforts of Los Pepes at all. But if you look at what they were doing in Colombia at the time, it's clear that they were working hand in hand with Los Pepes, whether they intended to or not.
It was very evident that they were having tremendous success in dismantling the Medellin organization. And obviously, we were trying to do the same thing.
There was a strategy, wide, perfect, outlined by the United States, by these agencies, in which tacitly each one did what each one had to do.
By February of '93, Los Pepes have killed dozens of Escobar's associates and members of his extended family.
So Pablo is now terrified that Los Pepes are going to kill his wife and children.
I got a phone call, almost a frantic phone call from the Minister of Defense, who said Escobar's wife and children and an entourage of 12 or 14 people are at the Rio Negro airport, and they have visas to go to the United States, and they're going to leave the country. If he succeeded in getting his family out of the country, there would be no inhibitions on him, and there was no telling what he might do.
The Escobar family and their bodyguards are met at Rio Negro Airport by U.S. DEA agents.
They were stopped at the airport in Bogota and stripped of their visas.
Who's going to tell me to give Escobar's family's visas back? Nobody.
So they're effectively keeping the bait being the family, in position in the country, while Los Pepes apply the pressure against Escobar.
Pablo's response to the Americans' block would be swift and deadly. April 1993. With his family prevented from fleeing Colombia and forced back into the hands of the death squad Los Pepes, cocaine king Pablo Escobar exacts his revenge.
Pablo's response was to set off a 300-pound bomb in Bogota that leveled a city block.